This is one of Malaysiakini's initial efforts to have a forum, a discussion among the various parties to discuss the topic about the Malaysian democracy and how we are moving forward. The way tonight's forum will be held is that we're going to give each speaker about 8 to 9 minutes to speak, and then we will have 2 questions read out by the moderator. These questions were submitted by our readers prior to today. We will then take 4 questions from the floor, about half an hour of Q&A from the floor, and then we'll allow the speakers to have a 5-minute concluding remarks. We're going to start the session actually, since it's the Euro 2012, and in great spirit, we'll start it with a flip of the coin, so that you can choose who goes first, who does the kickoff. Yeah. Can we have one representative from the BN and one representative from Pakatan to do the flip of the coin? So I'm the referee. Yeah? So you want to choose?
Tail.
Tail. So this is tails, huh?
Yep.
This is heads, okay? Oh, okay, heads. So you won. So you got to decide whether you want to go first, or would you like your BN colleagues to go ahead? You'll go ahead. Okay, fantastic. So we'll start with. So the team from Pakatan has chosen to kick off the debate we have tonight. I will keep time. After 8 minutes, after 7.5 minutes, I'll indicate that your time is running out. So without further ado, is Siva, you going to start or? Okay. So the first speaker will be YB Sivarasa. I've known Siva for a long time, nearly 20 years since I first come back from Australia. And Siva wears many hats. When I first met him, he was a human rights activist. He's also a lawyer. Some of you may not know that he's also a qualified geneticist from academic qualification. And then he became a politician. So the civil society lost a great activist, and the political parties inherited a great politician. He's the co-founder of the human rights NGO Swaram, and now he was the vice president of PKR until 2010. He's also a cancer survivor, which is great to have somebody who's sticking to politics despite health conditions. And he's been voted in the Subang constituency in 2008, and I believe he's probably defending that constituency. Without further ado, Sivarasa. Yes, you can stand or you can, whichever way you feel.
Thank you, Premesh. My fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I feel a little more comfortable with doing the opening speech standing up. It's the habit that politicians develop after a few years. Now, time is short. Let me go straight to the issues. Yeah? The topic asks, is Malaysian democracy moving forward? I thought it would be useful to start because I think it's important to set the terms of the debate by defining what democracy means, because there can be many different understandings of the word democracy. Is democracy just about the fact that there are regular elections in a country? I say no, that is not democracy. That's part of democracy, but that is not the full essence of democracy. So democracy is more than that. Democracy does mean the fact of free and fair elections. You can have elections which are not free and fair, and that's a meaningless democracy. That's a sham democracy. So free and fair elections are a necessary component of democracy. Civil liberties are also a necessary component of democracy. Civil liberties in the full sense. And the key civil liberties would be freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to receive information, freedom of peaceful public assembly, freedom of association. These are the basic freedoms that must be there if we are going to say there is a democracy in the first place. And a democracy is more than that. Because what happens in between the 4 or 5 years when there is an election, that also decides whether there is a democracy. The fact that you just get the right to vote every 4 to 5 years is by no means the defining statement of a democracy. Is there a culture, a political culture of democracy? Is there a political culture of freedom? Is there a political culture of popular participation? Do the Rakyat feel that they are part of decision making? These are the elements of a functioning democracy. Are the institutions accountable? Is the judiciary independent? Is the media free? Are the institutions like the police, the Attorney General's chambers, the anti-corruption agency, and most fundamentally, the Election Commission, are these institutions independent and accountable? These are all elements of democracy. So I'm coming from that standpoint. So I'm going to assess that question based on those assumptions, not from the assumption of simply what my other panelists may take the view, well, we have an election. That's a democracy. Take it or leave it. That's not my idea. I'm sure and my colleague YB Mujahid would share that. That's not our concept of a democracy. That is not Pakatan Rakyat's concept of a democracy. And you can see that in what we say in our Buku Jingga. You can see that set out in the political reforms that we will set out to do if the Malaysian people decide that we should sit in Putrajaya and run the country. We have set those things out. Now, based on those assumptions, let me get to answering the question. Is Malaysian democracy moving on or not? You know, I'm going to give you the view of an institution called The Economist. I'm sure many of you read the magazine The Economist. I don't usually cite it. I consider it sometimes too conservative, sometimes even right-wing. But today I thought, never mind, I'll come with a conservative institution standpoint. And you know, this is what they say. And this, to some extent, answers the question Malaysiakini is posing. The title of the article, which coincidentally I got from Malaysiakini, is Malaysia Slips Down the Democracy Index. They do an evaluation of 167 countries. And it's interesting that they found in 2008, we were number 68 perhaps. Number 68 it was. And last year, we slipped down to number 71. The ratings dropped from 6. Basically, it dropped to those 3 places. So they themselves find that Malaysia, in the last 3 years, 2008 to today, this conservative institution called The Economist rates us as dropping in the democracy index. That fits coincidentally with my assessment. My panelists, I'm sure our colleague YB Kota Belud and Gan will argue otherwise. They will say, well, we have repealed the ISA, we've amended the Police Act, we've amended the Printing Presses and Publications Act. How can you argue that we're not moving forward? That's probably what they're going to say. Well, we can take 2 perspectives on this. For me, The Economist says otherwise. Of course, this is looking at the picture in 2011. They haven't looked at what's happened in 2012, where Parliament in March, my friends there will argue, just repealed the ISA and amended the, the Printing Presses Act, when they removed the requirement for annual licensing. These reforms were done this year, and The Economist hasn't looked at that. Even taking all that into account, my argument today is to say, you took out the ISA, yes, but you replaced it with a draconian law, which we didn't need. You amended the Police Act. You took out Section 27, yes, but you replaced it with something called it's a bit of a euphemism, the Peaceful Assembly Act, which criminalizes the act of marching from point A to point B peacefully, advocating an issue. It makes nonsense of the idea of peaceful public assembly. This is why I agree with the economists when it says Malaysia slips down the democracy index. YB Lim Kit Siang was quite charitable. He said, the country is taking little baby steps forward. And I think that's the, if at all I might concede, that's the most I will concede. Little baby steps, perhaps. But overall, when we look at what's happening, because you can't just look at law, you also look at what people do, what the government does. So making legal changes is one thing in Parliament, but beating and bloodying the heads of hundreds of people in peaceful protesters in Bersih is also a part of the democracy index. And that is why when we look overall at the situation, I will argue that we're not really going forward. I conclude, do I have a very final, just something to think about. We also need to look at this question with a different perspective in time. And I'd like you to think about this. We shouldn't just look at this with the context of the last few years, although my colleagues over there would want to argue that. From 2009, with the Prime Minister coming in, things have moved forward. Let us also measure the question looking at 1957. 1957, we had independence, we wrote a constitution. Today, let's ask the question, do we have more or less democracy compared to what we started with in 1957? Thank you.
Thank you very much, YB Sivarasa. Sivarasa chose to define democracy, what he sees as democracy, and to look at two standpoints. One, a couple of years ago, and another standpoint, time of independence, and how does it compare to today. Thank you for those enlightening points. We'll move over to the colleagues from Barisan Nasional, and who will be going first? So we will have YB from Kota Belud, Abdul Rahman Dahlan, to kick off for the BN side. YB Rahman Dahlan was the political secretary to the Sabah Chief Minister before being elected to Parliament in 2008 as the UMNO representative. He's also the secretary for Sabah BN, and he's known to all of us, I think, as as a formidable force on Twitter Jaya. I myself have had a few exchanges with him, interesting, and he's always there to have his say on Twitter, and often we get the first view of what BN is saying from YB Rahman Dahlan's Twitter account. So I'm very interested to see what he has to say, and we'll kick off with him, and you have 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, Pramish. Good evening to all. I'm not really well prepared for this, but this week is Linus Week in Parliament. So I was more prepared for Linus debate, and it's being concluded as we speak now. But first of all, let me thank the organizer, Malaysiakini, for inviting me to participate in this debate. I'm going to be very frank. It is not easy to deal with Malaysiakini, especially from the point of view of an UMNO guy. After all, I have on record said numerous times that Malaysiakini should pack up and close shop. But credit must be given when it is due. I think Malaysiakini should be congratulated for organizing this debate, to ensure the views from diverse sources are being heard loud and clear. All right. Before I go, I'll include some of my rebuttals to YB Sivarasa opening remarks later on. But anyway, democracy, has Malaysia moved forward? Well, on a simplistic basis, I suppose the fact that YB Sivarasa is here and YB Mujahid, my good friends, are here this evening sharing these, their thoughts with government fellas on the same stage. And the fact that Malaysiakini exists and being able to organize such debate is an incontrovertible and irrefutable proof that democracy has progressed in Malaysia since those early years. Siva said 1957. Yeah, I agree. I suppose 1957, post-independence, Malaysia was a little bit more relaxed. There were probably more freedom to, i.e. democracy. But because of that freedom, we ended up with 1969. And that was the turning point, when there was a clash, racial clash in 1969, and the government had to step in and instituted several acts, including Sedition Act, and trying very hard to revamp the social structure of the country, of the nation, and hence we were becoming more careful in what we say and what we do. In fact, we made it very seriously that when Malay cannot question, for example, the status of vernacular schools, and that's the Sedition Act, covered under Sedition Act. And those are the things that happened in 1969 because we Malaysians did not know how to handle democracy back then. Well, that's that. On a simplistic basis, as I said just now, but contrary to what my fellow colleagues are saying on the opposite side, the government is doing its part in pushing democracy forward. Certainly not in a revolutionary way, where we will end up creating other problems that none of us here would like to be into. The government would like to do it in a more evolutionary way, step by step, and there's nothing wrong with baby steps, Siva, YB Siva. I think under the, looking at the background of the country, with this mixture of potential religious and racial eruptions, baby steps is probably what we need. Now, we have repealed the ISA. YB Siva says that's not all, but I think that's a big step. We have amended the AUKU. We have amended the Printing and Presses Act. Yes, we have repealed the Section 27 of the Police Act and introduced the Peaceful Assembly Act. Those are big steps, though baby steps. And I think to say in one wide brush and say that those are not at all considered as moving forward in terms of democracy in Malaysia, I think that's a bit stretching it a bit. Now, I understand throughout the years, we have gone through the many phases of democracy. Earlier on, our leaders, our founding fathers, decided that probably in order to have a nation, they were more preoccupied with the building blocks, the foundation of the country. They were not very much interested in the declaration of political rights. They were more interested in the declaration of economic rights. They wanted to provide jobs, food on the table. But as I speak to you all, I believe in sequence of events. We must get the sequence right. Otherwise, the country will easily fall into chaos and instability. What is the sequence? Well, first, we must get the country politically stable, independence, and then politically stable thereafter. Then what? Then we take care of the security of the nation and the people, make them feel secure so that they can conduct their daily lives. Then what? Then we look at the public infrastructure, the education, the health services. Those are all taken care of in those early years. Then what? Then we create jobs and economic opportunities for everybody. And now, after all that have been taken care of, now we come to a very interesting phase in our country's development, and that is participatory democracy. And I think there have been, the Prime Minister has been very, very conscious about this new idea, the need for giving more democratic space for everybody. And you can't have it all at one go. It just won't happen in Malaysia. and for some good reasons. Now, I understand a lot of us here are very, very passionate about democratic rights, but I think just like everything good about anything, like food, you can't take it all in one go, you will get sick. So you need to have the baby steps. It is also a phase, this participatory democracy will be a phase where the maturity of Malaysians and their leaders will be tested. Some will pass the test, and some will fail. This is also the phase which will be the riskiest of all, with all of its inherent instability, if not properly conducted. This is a phase where the envelope of tolerance is going to be pushed to the limits, and hopefully without actually breaking it, and this is undoubtedly a daunting task. Some people say democracy is a very messy business with its robust discussions, debates, opposing views, and dissenting positions. I agree, which is the more reason why we have to be very, very careful in doing so. And we have to do it in a systematic way, especially in Malaysia, where even the most inconsequential event will be seen from the religious and racial prism and undertones. So the people must be prepared mentally and spiritually to ensure that even when their ego is being questioned, they could take it in stride. How many more minutes? Oh, okay, thank you. So I suppose democracy is good only when you can manage it well. When people understand that it has limitations, that you can't have unbridled and no-holds-barred democracy in a country like us right now, when everyone sees things from their own narrow and racial and religious view. We have to look after that first. Remember the baby steps. So you may be surprised that Sivarasa mentioned about corruption and all that. Okay, fine. But you look at Singapore, it's actually some people are mistaken democracy with opening up the government. Singapore has no democracy as we know it, but they are very open. The government is very accountable, and probably that's what we also need here in this country. But that's not democracy. You can have a good governance without democracy. And Mahathir, for example, okay, last sentence. Mahathir, for example, is everybody, especially the opposition, keep calling Mahathir as a dictator. Well, that dictator has won 4 elections and democratically elected, and he has put jobs and food on the table for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, YB Rahman Dahlan from Kota Belud. YB emphasized the fact that 1969 was a turning point for this country, after which that he calls for baby steps or a sequencing of steps towards democracy, and he makes the case that we are on this process towards democratization. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the third speaker tonight, which is YB Mujahid Yusof Rawa. YB Mujahid was elected to Parliament for Parit, Buntar and Perak in the 2008 elections after missing out in the previous 2 elections, 1999 and 2004. He is the son of the former past president Yusof Rawa. And he's the chairperson of the PAS National Unity Committee, working hard to transform PAS into a multiracial party by giving strong support to the PAS Supporters Club. He has a PhD in Islamic politics from University of Malaya, and he's an active author and has written at least 10 books in Islam and politics. You have the floor, YB.
Thank you very much. Moderator and fellow panelists and all participants of today's debate. First of all, let me thank Malaysiakini for giving us the opportunity to discuss and debate and dissent. And at the end of the day, all the discussion will go back to the most important thing, why we are here, because we love this country. I think that is the most a basic thing that we're discussing here. But it's not about rebutting. It's not about rebutting who's right or who's wrong, because democracy is so wide. But then again, I had difficulties to make it very concise in 10 minutes, which we politicians do not do that. We always speak in long hours. But nevertheless, I would just like to focus on the 5 components of democracy. And it's very dynamic. Democracy is not just structural, but democracy is dynamic between check and balance, dynamic between education, culture, and participation. Although my good friend mentioned that we took a baby step to come to where we are today, it's better late than never, but it's very late, you know. I found out this during my little research before coming here, that most democracy in ASEAN are different of that to the Western, to the American democracy. Now, why did we take a very baby step? It's not because they want to evolve, but it's because they fear of their power. That's the issue, not because they want to evolve. Now, I can say that because my party was a victim of this. We were here since my party, Islamic Party, were there during pre-independent. My leaders, like Dr. Burhan Al-Helmi, was under ISA. My other leaders were the victims of Operasi Lalang. Yeah? First, secondly, is why is that we are talking about the people are not ready? It's not about the people who are not ready, it's the government of the day who is not ready. Are we saying that the people are, you know, we want to regiment them, you know? You must come to this stage after I say so. Before you can come to this stage, no, you cannot. It's about food, it's about, no. I do not think so, that is the problem. Democracy, it's the essence of the human being. Once that is been deprived, then the uprising will come. But unfortunately, during those days, there were no social media. They had to eat all the media coming from the government. They did not have much choice. They were doing threatening to the kampung folks. If you do not support UMNO, BN, this will happen to you and all that. So I think the problem is not about evolving or taking a baby step. It's more of a, I would say, the fear of the government of the day of losing power and want to grip the power. And this is where past has been consistent. We have been in the democratic process. We went into election. We lost more than we won. But yet we believe in democracy because we believe that it's not about winning. Democracy is educating. And I think past will deserve to say this for my fellow panelists, because if you look into the component of democracy, we have what we call the functioning government. That is also part of democracy. I do not think that just because me and Sivarasa won the election, so you say there's democracy. I mean, this is not as simple as that. The world today is complicated. You have to see many things. I would just like to touch on the issue of federalism. All the while, Kelantan has been under PAS since 1959. Then it turned to Barisan Nasional. Then we came back to power in 1990. We suffered from this intrusion of federalism. The intrusion of federal into the state affair. They had to interfere. They used the threatening tactics. They, at the same time, set up the JKKP, Jawatan Kuasa Keselamatan Persekutuan, which we have in Selangor, which we have in Perak previously, which we have in Penang. Now that creates a lot of problem. You have to respect federalism. You have to respect the people who vote for you. This is democracy. You don't need time to understand that. You don't need time to know that. That's democracy. People are given the choice to choose who they want. And you do not blame them, or you do not suppress them for the choice they made. Today, Terengganu suffered. You remember the issue of royalty? We were deprived of royalty just because PAS was under the hand, Terengganu was under the hands of PAS. And when the BN won 2004, then they give back the royalty. What is this? Do you need a lot of time to understand that? Federalism is there. It's part of our constitution. We are made of federation. We must have this line between the authority of the state and also the authority of the federal. But the intrusion, the interference of the affair. Why? Because it's in the opposition. At least the opposition in the federal. Well, we are the ruling party in the state. Now, I would see this intrusion of federalism. Then we come up with the issue of Kelantan. We came to know that Kelantan deserves also a royalty, 5% royalty from Petronas. But then we did not get it. And I would like to say to you that even the Sultan of Kelantan support Kelantan government to ask for the royalty. We cannot back our right. You do not back your right. You deserve your right. Any government at the federal must respect that. Even if we won in the federal, I hope so. We will take go over the country. My friend would not like that statement, of course. This is just a joke. Don't worry. First thing we will do is to respect federalism, and it is mentioned in our manifesto Negara Berkebajikan, and we are committed to that respect. Second thing we will do is to make sure that even in the state where BN won and we lost, and we are at the federal, we will not hesitate to give the allocation for the MPs to give service to the people regardless of their parties. I mean, Sivarasa better than me because he's in Selangor. It's a state run by Pakatan. I'm in Perak. My state was hijacked later on. So, in an undemocratic way. So, I think, back to the issue here. Are we done? So, I make my concluding remark on this. Malaysia, democracy, yes, we need not to move forward, but we need to run forward. And I think we from Pakatan Rakyat, from PAS, my party, DAP and PKR, we want all the people to run with us towards a better democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, YB and Mujahid Yusof Wara. Obviously, a very entertaining speech for the crowd. I think he made the critical points that, that perhaps democracy is a bit late, that the people are ready, but perhaps the government of the day is not ready for democracy. And he gave a lot of emphasis about federalism and what he believes is a correct interpretation of federalism or the division of power between the federal government and the state government. Thank you very much. We will now move to our last speaker of the night, but not least, Senator YB Gan Peng Siao from MCA. The senator was elected as a state assemblyman for his hometown, Menggibol, but lost in the last election, but has since been appointed to the Senate and is now the Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, and is one of 4 MCA Vice Presidents. He's also the legal advisor to many NGOs and societies, and was the winner of the Outstanding Young Malaysian Award in the category of Politics, Legal and Government Affairs in 2006. You may have the floor.
Okay, thanks, Pramesh. But I saw that YB Siva and YB Mujahid all stood up, so if I don't stand up, probably will seem to be arrogant. So sorry, my dear friend. Yeah, let me be construed otherwise. Now, I just want to go straight to the point and about the topic today. When I received a call from Malaysiakini about a topic, I thought, well, that's very good. Is Malaysia's democracy moving forward? I thought it was quite blindingly obvious. There are a lot of changes, a lot of reforms, transformations going on. I thought it was easy. But after that, I must say, I thought it was a yes or easy, so therefore I agreed to come. But after that, on further reflection, it becomes a no. It is yes and no answer to this. Now, I would say, perhaps you want to make comparisons, especially during Tun Mahathir's time. Tun Mahathir is exactly like Lee Kuan Yew. Different priorities in the state of development of the country, like Singapore, like Malaysia. But after Mahathir's era, when Pala comes in, usher in a new culture of politics, and especially after 2009, when under Najib's administrations, a lot of reforms have taken place. So when I say yes, yes means a lot of reforms taking place, and a lot of, but all these reforms, I must say, it may not have fulfilled every single individual's wish list. And maybe YB Mujahid wants to have a great leap forward and a sudden change. And my colleague has conveyed the thought that it is evolutionary. We're not looking for revolutionary changes, and it's a matter of judgment whether you agree which approach. It's a matter of approach. Now, when I say we may not fulfill all the wish lists, but what we can see for the last couple of years in particular, the political structures, the political infrastructures, and in particular, the decision-making process of these nations is a lot more consultative and a lot more transparent than ever before. And I would say this is moving forward. Now, perhaps I'll just give a few examples. The legislative reforms, and which has been touched upon before, the IS and EO, perhaps Sivarasa will think otherwise, and maybe you have different thought about whether preventive laws are suitable for this nation. And to me, I was a practicing lawyer, and I have my view about to what extent preventive laws should be allowed. But the world has changed. But if you are dealing with people who are prepared to blow themselves up and blow the people around you up as well, and how are you going to deal with these people? And are you going to, I'm talking about terrorists in particular, and are you going to follow the good old due legal process, equality before law, bring to the court, make decisions, judged by a peer, and therefore, we decide whether he's criminal or not criminal? He doesn't care whether he's a criminal or he's not a criminal, because he's answering, some people are not answering to the people, they're answering to his own belief of his own God. And so that is something that we really have to look into. And therefore you see, even America, even the UK, they bring in the Anti-Terrorism Act, but of course with different variation. But I would say, at the very least, the repeal of ISA, the Replacement Act and all that statutes, brings in shorter period of detention, judicial oversight, and all this has been put into place. And this, I would say, is a classic case, a clear case of advance betterments compared to the previous time. And AUKU, and I've been forefront in AUKU, that I feel that politics should be allowed for the school, for the university students. They're just like me and you. And you can't be victimizing the students. And the change has taken place. And other than that, of course, you have more Royal Commission. Of course, not all the recommendations by the Royal Commissions are fully adopted by the government, and government is doing it slowly, one after another, or maybe just too slow for some other people's comfort. But I see there's improvement on that. And of course, we have a lot more parliamentary select committee. Now, talking about this, I get a bit agitated, I must say. I'll give you one particular example, Linus. Whether you agree with Linus, not agree with Linus, whether you understand Linus altogether, whether you believe the scientific facts, scientific evidence given by the experts or non-experts, even YB Mujahid's colleagues is saying that Linus is nothing wrong, it's scientifically unproven that there's any more risk than any other chemical plant. Whether you agree with it or not, I still remember the DAP's vice president and in the parliaments calling the government to set up select committee. And when the select committee was set up, and therefore what happens? When the select committee was set up, and Lim Guan Eng said, we are not participating, we're boycotting. And so that is what we are facing now. And of course, we have media reforms. I wouldn't say it is best on earth, but still moving forwards. And Rais Yatim has announced that opposition will be given the access to TV, the national TV. Electoral reform, Ambiga is here, probably is not quite agreeable to certain part of it, but I do see the changes. And I must say, I would say if anyone want to demonize Dr. Ambiga, I would disagree. But I also disagree with some of her views as well. So these are all the changes, and we have a fairly robust opposition after 2008. And one thing, perhaps we'll just take one particular incident. The few states, the peaceful handover of power to the Penang, Kedah, then the Perak and Selangor is a classic example. This is a democratic principle, democratic process is in action. And these are... Now, Perak will come to that, and you can ask a question later. But allow me to answer to a para in a short while. But let me finish what I want to say first, please. Can I? Please? Yeah? Okay. Now when these are the changes, the reforms have taken place, and where I say yes. But there are also no. We're not moving forward. I've given an example, and I admire over past some time. Consistent since pre-independence until now. Their policies, their belief, their political pursuit have always been consistent, even in their belief in theocratic ambitions. There's always been consistent. Maybe at one stage you wrap it up as in a welfare state and all that. But when you're talking about YB Mujahid, we're talking about respect the wishes of the people. One classic example, YB Siva perhaps want to answer to all. I still remember 2008-916 incident. Anwar Ibrahim's, their common leaders, Anwar Ibrahim's going around the world, encouraging the BN legislators to defect. And would you call that, is that moving forward in terms of democratic principle? Shouldn't we then respect the wishes of the people? It's just like the people in Penang, in Selangor, we respect them and let them run. Unless the defections. I still remember Tian Chua, your colleague Tian Chua, going around the world. We went to Taiwan and bringing reporters, and reporters were there taking pictures and announced to the world, we have got this sufficient numbers to defect and to form the federal government. But my dear friends, I thought the only person who fell for this was Yong Teck Lee. He brought his party out and joined PKR. So these are the incidents. But do we have a very functional shadow cabinet? If you're talking about democratic principles in elections, and a lot more boycott, walkout, and as I said just now, the parliamentary select committees are not joining, and even the Center of Independent Journalists was commenting that they have no confidence when Pakatan coming into power, giving the way they ban newspapers, medias, maybe not reporting them fair enough or nice enough. And when I was saying some of the news reported by Malaysiakini about me or about what I said, I thought it was a bit slightly unfair, but I don't complain. But I trust their professionalism. I let people to judge. And I would like to clarify if I got the opportunity. So these are the rhetorics, the half-truth, and we're talking about buku jingga, and the one thing they cannot agree is, I don't know, something very fundamental, basic structure of this country, and buku jingga just agree to disagree with the theocratic ambitions of past. And I don't know how this is going to answer the people. And especially, and if you have a democratic principle, democracy you're talking about by YB Mujahid, and you have a leader who promised voters to go to heaven by voting for past. What is this? I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to be rhetorical about this, but this is something, are we inculcate good political culture, democratic principles in our system? Now, I think I'll probably just cut it short, and I'll probably leave it to my oppositions to list the failing of BN, and that one I will leave to. But I think what I feel, in short, we could do better. This country can definitely do a lot better than what we are doing now, and it requires a lot more cooperations and more consultative in nature in our pursuit of politics. And transformation process come with a price, transformation process come with principles, transformation process come with wider consultations and participations from all. With that, thank you.
Malaysiakini.com.
For the Malaysiakini.
For the Malaysiakini.